Hello, welcome back, and you should have added the create event now. Next couple of events we're going to do in this tutorial, which will be some collision events. As you saw from when you ran your game, when the ball started moving in a down direction, it just went straight through the wall. So in order to get around that, we need to add an event on the object ball which tells it to bounce off the wall. So when the ball has a collision with the wall, we want it to just simply bounce off. So you can see there in the jump actions, we want it to itself to bounce. Doesn't have to be precisely, and it's against solid objects. So click OK, because of course we made our object solid earlier on. So that's quite a simple one. It will just bounce straight off. Now of course we've also got a case that what happens when the ball hits the bat, and what we want it to do then is actually to move in a certain direction. So what we're going to do is have another collision event, so add event collision, this time with the bat. We want it to, if it's going to collide from above, we want it to bounce back up, but if it collides from below, we want it to bounce down. So we add the moved fixed actions, so we want to bounce them up and down, so all of the ups and downs. We don't want it to go sideways, it would be very difficult for it to go sideways. And of course we want it to bounce at a certain speed, otherwise it will just stop, and we'll give that speed 8 because that was the original speed we set in the create. Now the final collision that we'll add on the ball here is the collision with object barrier. Now this is a bit more complicated, but here we go. So add the event collision, this time with the barrier. Now if you do hit the barrier, of course what we want to do is for the ball to come back down towards the bat. So the first thing we need to add is the moved fix actions, which tell the ball to go downwards, again at a speed of 8, and click OK. But not only do we want it to just move back down, but we want the barrier to disappear, because once you've hit one of the barriers, it disappears from the game. Otherwise you're not actually playing the game. The object of the game is to destroy all the barriers and then to break out on that gap at the top of the wall. So what we'll actually do here is we'll destroy the instance of the barrier. So we'll go across to our main 1 tab, and you can see that there's in the object section here there's a little recycle bin. So what we're actually doing is destroying the barrier object. So we destroy instance. Now this is an important part here, because if I leave this at self, what it will do is it will actually destroy the ball. So I need to say other here, so really important. So what it will do is it will actually destroy the barrier, not the ball, and click OK. And then the final thing on the collision with the barrier, of course, you gain a point every time you hit the barrier. So what we do is we go back to our score tab, and what we want to do is then every time it hits the barrier, we want to set the score to 1, for example. So maybe 1 point every time they score. Now again, we've seen this before. The relative box there needs to be ticked. Otherwise it will just keep adding 1 each time. It won't add on 1 to the previous one. So we make it relative, and it will keep on incrementing those values for us. And click OK. So what I'll do now is I'll save my game and let's run it to see what happens. So we should see now when the game loads, we should see the score set to 0 and see the score caption. It should start moving in a downward direction. When it hits the wall now, it should bounce off it. When it hits the bat, it should start moving either up or down. And then when it hits the barrier, it should start moving back down. It should destroy the barrier, and we should go, our score should go up by 1 each time. So let's make sure that that all works. Saving the executable for me. So our game loads. You can see the ball bouncing around. Now that's interesting, it bounces and it gives you a score even though you haven't perhaps controlled it, and we'll probably deal with that a bit later in the tutorials. So I'm using the bat now to direct the ball towards the barriers. It will come off in a random direction each time. Sometimes it will go straight up like that, which you perhaps don't always want. And then I keep going, you can see my score incrementing by 1, and we're getting there with this game. So let's close that down to stop the game. So have a go now at putting in all those collision events. So bounce when it collides with the wall, move in a up or down direction at a speed of 8 when it hits the bat, and then a few more on the object barrier there. We want it to start moving down, we want to destroy the instance of the other, and we want to add 1 to the score, so make that relative.